Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, my brothers and sisters. Good morning, and welcome to another Good Morning Grief Devotional. It's your boy, I'm here, Pastor Corey Allen Duncan Sr., and I'm so happy and excited to have this opportunity to lead you in today's grief devotional. This is the daily grief devotional that is strategically designed to help you to navigate through your grief one day at a time. What is grief? I'm so glad you asked. Grief, my brothers and sisters, it is the natural and normal response to loss, change, and transition that results in the expressions of feelings and emotions. Grief is what you feel on the inside, but mourning is how it is expressed on the outside. Therefore, we don't suppress it, but we express it. We don't just feel, but we reveal. And that's why we say, good morning, because morning is a good thing. Look, thank you so much for joining us. Happy to have this opportunity on this Tuesday, May 23rd, to lead you in yet another grief devotional. Y'all, this is the day that the Lord has made. He has commanded us to rejoice and to be glad in it. Yeah. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We are going to rejoice. We're going to be glad in it. So I continue to pray for you as you navigate through your grief journey and continue to relish this opportunity to lead you and through as you navigate through this pivotal circumstance. So thank you for joining us on today. Without further ado, let's get to it. Today's grief quote says, questions wake people up. They prompt new ideas. They show people new places, new ways of doing things. Questions wake people up. They prompt new ideas. They show people new places, new ways of doing things. Today is day 143. We're going to talk about questions. We are going to talk about questions. Real brief this morning. Check this out. Have you noticed that grief brings with it a boatload of questions? Grief brings with it a boatload of questions. Whenever you deal with grief, loss, change, and transition, you have a boatload of questions, right? You start to ask questions and things like why and how questions, right? We'll say, why did this have to happen? Why now did this have to happen? Why in this way did this have to happen? Then we say, how will I go on? How will I go on with my life without you in my life? Grief brings about a boatload of questions. And no doubt in my mind, everybody that's watching now, if you dealt with loss, change, and transition, you've had some questions. You've questioned yourself. You've questioned God. You questioned your actions. You questioned their actions. You questioned, did I do enough? What if I would have did this? Had I just went over there sooner? Were the signs there? How could I prevented it? Why did I tell them to run to the store? How come I just didn't do it? How come I didn't do this? Why did this happen? If I just would have kept them here, if I just would have told them not to go out that night, if I wish I would have known. We have a boatload of questions when it comes to grief. Not just why questions, but how questions. Not just how questions, but why and when questions. Why now, God? When am I gonna get? When am I gonna get through this? Right? How am I gonna move on with my life without them in my life? Grief brings about a boatload of questions. Other people have questions for us too, right? People people will ask, how are you doing? Right? Oh, people will ask, how are you doing? And I think it's innocent. I think it's genuine. Sometimes I think they don't know no better, right? Because you're like, how you think I'm doing? I just buried my mother, my father, my husband, my wife, my son, my daughter, my brother, my sister. How do you think I'm doing, right? So not only do we have a boatload of questions, but people have questions for us. How are you doing? What happened? Everybody wants to know what happened. I think that is, I don't know, that's like an intimate question. If you're not like an inner circle, if you're not like super close, and even then, you give them the opportunity, because if y'all connected like that, then they will definitely tell you, especially when it's fresh, right? When they just when it just happens, asking what happened. Social media, what happened? Right? People start to ask you all type of stuff that you really ain't ready to answer. What are you gonna do next? Like, I mean, how am I supposed to know what I'm about to do next? Here it is. Their need to know can be exhausting. As you navigate through this grief journal and people ask you a boatload of questions, y'all, their need to know can be exalting. Their need to know, them asking all these questions, it can be what? It can be exhausting. For the time being, there may be more questions than answers. This is what we got to understand. As you navigate through this grief journey, there may be more questions than answers. I tell people all the time because, of course, being a person that deals in theology and God and pastor, people, they want answers, and so they'll come to me and they'll ask. They'll ask me. They want some theological understanding. They want some spiritual understanding. They want to make sense of the nonsense. They try to reason and make sense out of it. So they'll come to me with questions. And this is the thing, y'all, because I'm not God, right? And there's a few scriptures that I can share. Of course, I'm compassionate. I show up for people. But like Deuteronomy 29:29 says, the secret things belong to the Lord. There's some things that we may not ever know, right? For whatever reason. Isaiah, I think it's 43, says our thoughts are not his thoughts and our ways are not his ways. That a lot of times the things that God do, his thoughts are not ours, his ways are not our ways. He has his way, his reason for why he does what he does, why he allows what he allows. And a lot of times what we think could have happened or should have happened, it doesn't for whatever reason. There's a scripture, I think it's in Job. God is talking to Job, I believe, or no, this is in Ecclesiastes. He says, it's either in Ecclesiastes or Job. He says, you don't even know how the bones of a baby are, we don't even know how the bones of a baby are formed in the womb of a mother. How could we therefore know the mind of God, right? We try to make sense. We try to make sense. And y'all, the reality is I can't tell you. I can't tell you why God allowed my father to transition at 57. And I had him for 33 years, but I need him for the next 33 years. I can't tell you. I can't tell you why God allowed my sister to transition at the age of 24, right? On one of the happiest days of her life, getting married, right? That a series of unfortunate events which begin to unfold. And now all of a sudden, boom. I can't tell you. I don't have the answer. I can't tell you. Well, my best friend, after taking his son to college, would pull up to the college campus, and 10 years later, have him 10 minutes later, after pulling up, would have a massive heart attack, right, and die. I can't. I can't tell you, and leave behind a wife and two sons. I can't tell you, right? I don't know. I don't know the mind of God. This is what I do know. I do know that Proverbs 3:5 and 6 says, just trust in the Lord. And I know it's hard because we want to blame God. We want to hold him accountable. We want to be mad at him. We want to look at him with the side eye. Like, if you got all power in heaven and earth, didn't you have the power to stop this, right? But when we don't know the mind of God, when we don't know why God allows what he allows, Proverbs 3:5 and 6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. That leaning to your own understanding is trying to figure out the mind of God, trying to figure out the will of God, trying to understand, right? Lean not to your own understanding, but in all your ways, acknowledge him. Just acknowledge him, and guess what? He'll direct your path. Romans 8:28, for we know all things is going to work together for the good of them that love God, to them that are the called according to his purpose, right? When Job lost everything he had, you want to talk about grief? Grief deals with loss, change, and transition. He lost his children, he lost his business, he lost his house, he lost his cattle, his sheep. He even lost the support of his wife, who said, "Why don't you just curse God and die?" Right? You want to talk about loss, change, and transition? Job. You want to talk about grief? Oh, this brother was in grief. You know what he said? Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. Naked I came into this world, naked I shall leave. The Lord has given, the Lord has taken away. Blessed. He said, "Blessed be the name of the Lord." His praise was not predicated on his possessions. It wasn't predicated on the people in his life. It wasn't predicated upon his profit, his prestige, his platform, his power. It wasn't predicated on none of that. He loved God more than anything. We sing that song, "I love you, Jesus, love you more than anything." But let us get a pink slip and we stop coming to church. Or let someone die and we're so mad and we're so angry. And that's a natural emotion. But we accuse God, we blame God, and look, stop going to church, stop praying, stop talking to Him for a prolonged season, right? So I don't know. I don't have the answers, right? Life is going to have, when you go through grief, you're going to have a million questions. You're going to have a million questions. For the time being, there may be more questions than answers. Questioning, y'all, is part of the Greek journey. Questioning is part of the Greek journey. It's okay. It's all right. It's natural. It's normal. It's okay. Questioning is part of the Greek journey. All of the questions make us consider what we think, what we feel, and what we believe, right? The questions, even when there are no answers, guess what? They wake us up. Those questions, even when there are no answers, those questions, they wake us up. Here's the final thought. I've got questions. So do others. It's normal and natural to ask, even when answers aren't forthcoming or easy. I've got questions. So do others. It's normal, it's natural to ask, even when the answers aren't forthcoming and they are not easy. That's part of the grief process. Part of the grief process is to ask those. That's part of the mourning. Grief is what you feel. Mourning is what you reveal. Part of mourning is asking those questions, even when the answers aren't forthcoming, even when the answers aren't easy. Even if you don't have the answers, guess what? Ask the questions, verbalize it, get it out of your system, right? I think it was Why Did I Get Married? And there was so much tension between Janet Jackson and Malik Yoba. I think that was the couple. And there was just so much going on, right? And now, this just popped into my mind. If y'all go back and watch it, I think it was one. It might have been two. I can't remember. But I guess they had a child. The child died in a car accident, and I think he didn't put the seatbelt on. It was something that happened. I can't remember, but I remember her just having this outburst, right? And just coming out. And finally, all this pent up aggression, all this pent up, think she was grieving, but in mourning, she never asked those questions, until it came erupting out of her like a volcano. Now I got to go back and watch the scene. It came erupt and it started to affect even their relationship, right? And how they moved on and the things that they did, because I'm grieving, but I'm not mourning. I'm feeling, but I'm not revealing. I think she was a therapist, right? So I'm feeling, but I'm not revealing, right? I'm suppressing instead of expressing. And so in one of those scenes at the end, I think she just erupted and all of these questions came out. It was either him or her. Just started, well, how come you didn't put this in? Well, how come you did? How come? And you don't want to get to the point to where you erupt like a volcano and all of this stuff comes spewing out of you. That's what happens when you suppress, but you don't express. That's what happens when you feel, but you don't reveal, right? That's what happens when you grieve, but you don't mourn. So when you mourn meaningfully, you don't wait to erupt like a volcano, right? But you take your time, and even in seasons and times like these, you ask those questions, right? May not be forthcoming. The answer may not be forthcoming. The answer may not be easy. You may not even get an answer, right? But it's still healthy to verbalize, to articulate, and to ask your question. Come on, y'all. Today is day 143. We're talking about questions. Look, I hope you were blessed. I hope that made sense. I hope it made sense. I hope you were blessed. Do you have any questions for me? Do you have any questions for me? Questions or comments? Somebody said, "What happened gets me." Yeah, yeah, and I think people are genuine. People want to know. Some people are just nosy. Some people want to meddle. But yeah, they definitely gonna hit you with that. Hey, Miss Donna, I hate the question. What happened? If I wanted you to know, you wouldn't have to ask. I would have told you. Senseless and sometimes just nosy. Exactly. Senseless and nosy. And that's the thing, right? You don't have to, just because they ask it, you don't have to, you can be selective in what you share and when you share and who you share it with, right? And so that's important. Really, sometimes you have questions about why things happen when someone dies. We don't have the answers, for God will reveal it to you to help you deal with it better. You're right. You are absolutely right. We a lot of times we got those questions, right? Um, and sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I don't know. You can reduce it. Sometimes you can say, "Well, they was hard head," or sometimes you can say, "Well, they was drunk driving." Like, you know what I'm saying? It's, you know, well, sometimes you can, sometimes you can try to reason, you can try to rationalize. I mean, sometimes one plus one equals two, right? Sometimes two plus two it does equal four, right? But yeah, we try to ration, we try to we try to rationalize or reason. Um, we ask why, especially when situations, depending on the nature of the situation and circumstance, but we don't have the answers. Sometimes stuff is revealed, sometimes it's not revealed, right? And so that's just one of those things, that we have to ask God for the strength to continue to navigate through life, sometimes with unanswered questions. I'm struggling with wanting to avoid people to avoid the questions, right? Yeah, and I definitely get that. You want to avoid people because you want to avoid the question. You don't feel like answering those questions. And so, what you do with that, you come up with two or three prepackaged answers so that any event that you run into people um, who may have questions, you right, then you just let them know in a very kind and polite way. Because sometimes, once again, some people are nosy, some people are not, some people may genuinely care, right? And so when they ask, "Yo, what happened?" Blah, 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 just keep me lifted in prayer, right? I'm not in the space to discuss at this time. Just keep me lifted in prayer, right? If they can't respect that, then start cussing them out. I'm just playing. I'm just playing. But what you do is you establish your boundaries. It's your grief, your way. What just said that? That's what she said. My grief, my way. You establish your boundaries, right? You establish your boundaries. And for people who you want to share, you share. But, and you don't have to be, no, you don't have to avoid going out in public. Um, yeah, I'm not, I don't have the capacity to share at this time. Just keep me lifted in prayer. What happened? I'm not at liberty to discuss at the moment. Just keep me lifted in prayer. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. So you come up with two or three prepackaged answers. So when you face people or situations and circumstances, yeah, just let them know, right? I think that's important. So I hope that helps. Yeah, I hope that helps. And just let them know, and just be stern about it, and change the subject. If you don't want to discuss, I don't have the capacity to discuss at this time. Just keep me lifted in prayer. So how you doing? How's the weather? How's the kids? Change the subject. Make your statement, change the subject to let them know this is not something we about to visit. We ain't about to talk about it. You ain't about to keep prying. You know, I don't have the capacity to discuss at this time. Just keep me lifted in prayer. So how you doing? It's Memorial Day. Y'all cooking out? How's the kids? Right? Change the subject. They'll get it. Any other questions or comments? I appreciate y'all joining us. I hope this helps. I hope y'all being blessed. I hope this helps. I hope y'all being blessed. All right. No more questions for me. No more questions for me. No more questions for me. All right. Well, I love y'all with the love of the Lord. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in. Thank y'all for joining us on today. I will see y'all tomorrow at 8 a.m. for another Good Morning Grief devotion. God bless you.
Good morning. Good morning.